topic tonight is 10 ways to equalize your naturally. Most people know one or two, maybe three. We're going to talk about 10. Now, I have to warn you, I've given this talk many times around the world, and this is an audience participation talk, which means that everybody is going to have to try all 10 ways. All right. That's the only way you're going to figure out which one works. So I don't have any way of telling you. And my wife will tell you that I've been known to teach these techniques on an airplane. This is my disclaimer. I am a chronic seasonal allergy and sinus sufferer since at least junior high, and a former Sudafed diver. If I didn't take 12-hour Sudafed in the morning, I did not dive. I am a board-certified psychiatrist, not an allergist or ENT specialist. I'm a licensed physician in the state of North Carolina. My intern, I'm a graduate of Duke University School of Medicine. For that, I have a mechanical engineering degree from Georgia Tech in Atlanta. I have a year of surgery internship and 3 years of psychiatry residency and some additional training in clinical trials design and graduate level statistics. The other thing is I'll take money from anybody who wants to give it to me. I have been a paid consultant in Elmed Pharmaceuticals, the manufacturer of sinus drinks. I've been on the speakers panels of multiple drug companies and have done clinical trials for multiple drug companies, mostly the psychiatric unit, of course. Now, many of the slides are from a presentation that you actually will find on the Diagram Network website if you go to one of their education programs. They come from Dr. Franz Cronje, who is the former president and CEO of DAN, Southern Africa. He is back in Southern Africa now, but he's no longer involved in hyperbaric medicine or diet. But is one of the world's experts on hyperbaric and hypobaric ears. So there's also some other slides that I got from the Geneva Eustachian Tube Institute. Now, if you look in the DAN guide for avoiding ear and sinus injuries, the most common injuries reported to DAN each year are not DCI. That's actually a fairly rare event. What they get are ear problems. My wife and I did a very large study back in 2000 involving over 12,000 divers from around the world, and we followed them for 3 years. One of the piece of information we gathered was who had trouble equalizing their ears. Okay, and as you can see, slightly less than half of divers, and this was out of 1,984. And no, I don't have the p-values or the confidence intervals, but with that big an N, these are significant. Just slightly less than half of divers have never had trouble equalizing pressure in their middle ears. How many people in this audience have never had trouble equalizing their middle ears? Wow. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, you may not need this talk, but I'll guarantee you that you're going to have a dive buddy or somebody in your group one day that is, and you may be able to help them. Occasionally, 40%, about half, most. See, I fell in here. I actually had to give up diving for a while. Wow. Everybody remember Boyle's Law? College students, what is Boyle's Law?
Pressure increases, volume decreases?
Yeah. Pressure times volume equals nRT. So if you keep the number of molecules and temperature constant, and raise the pressure, the volume goes down. Well, that's a problem for divers, of course, because we're going down. And we've got all these places that have air in them. So we're going to talk about the ear. We have the outer ear, which is where you get swimmer's ear. Anybody ever had swimmer's ear? Yeah. It's due to Pseudomonas. Pseudomonas. We'll talk about that a little later. The middle ear is the eustachian tube. The middle ear is connected to the outside world by the eustachian tube. Now, Dr. Carol Rulers, when I was giving this talk to the Lionfish Club Sunday, said, well, it's really just a fold of skin. But all my books said it's a tube. But it opens up in the back of your mouth and goes up to the middle ear. And then we have the inner ear, which contains the semicircular canals, which are balance, and shame on me, cochlear, which is where you hear. And for you young people, when you go to very loud concerts and sit on the front row, this is what you damage. So do hard hat divers, by the way. The noise inside the hard hats damages the cochlear. Yes?
The eustachian tube opens up in the back of the mouth or the nose?
Well, when you get far enough, it's all the same. You'll see some pictures. I'll warn you. Come on. That's just showing right numbers. There we go. All right, let's try again. Okay. Everybody's been to a pediatrician and they look in your ears. And if you've been to a doctor, they look in your ears. Dan and other companies sell these little portable ones. I was on the Caribbean Explorer 2 with my son, and he developed ear pain. And they had one of these, but guess what? No balance. That was my reaction. What do you see in this picture? Yeah, they look all pretty much the same, except for this character here. So you gotta know what you're looking at. So this is what your doctor or healthcare provider, I think is the politically correct term now, is looking at. This is the right ear. Okay, this to work. Your nose is up here. Back of your head is back here. The top of your ear is up here. And you can see the lateral process of the malleus, which is the hammer. And the little light reflex. This is the drum. This is a nice healthy ear. And we're going to, so when the doctor looks, he should see the light reflex. And when you equalize, there should be a reflex up here. That's the superior, posterior quadrant of the tympanic membrane. And here we go. So, what you're seeing is this patient. You see the light reflex that you normally see. The malleus up here, and then here is the flexing when you equalize your ear. Okay? And so when the doctor says, well, let's see if you can clear your ears, that's what he's looking for, is that. Okay, middle ear anatomy. Malleus, the incus, the stapes, these little tiny little bones in the middle ear. Here's the back of your throat, nasopharynx. Here's the eustachian tube or fold. Here's the inner ear here. Oh goody, this one's working. Now you're gonna take a look at the eustachian tube. Opening anyway. Up the nose, past the turbinates. And voila, the opening of the eustachian tube. Right there. We'll see it again. Okay. The tube opens to regulate pressure in the middle ear. And you can get things like airplane descent or guided descent, or when you have ear infection, can mess things up. The eustachian tube opens up to rebalance the pressures. And here we see section 2 again. It's closed. Now it's open. Closed, open, closed, open. Believe it or not, there are two muscles, little teeny tiny muscles, that help open and close. The TVPM and the LDPM. And those of you who think about going to medical school, I did not have to know this on the boards. But you can be really smart now when you tell people about this. So, this gets into things where these muscles can fatigue. So if you haven't been doing much equalizing and we go on a fancy dive trip, and about the fourth day it feels like it's a little harder to open your ears up, it's possible that you have fatigued these two muscles. But guess what? You can exercise them, and I'll talk about that. Middle ear physiology. The middle ear space constantly absorbs oxygen. It does so, and the middle ear pressure is usually about 20 millimeters of mercury below ambient pressure, whether that's in an airplane or underwater. It generates negative pressure because it's absorbing the oxygen at about 55 millimeters of mercury per hour. So there's no such thing as going to 70 feet, equalizing your ears, and you're done for an hour. Oops. Okay. And normally you equalize by yawning, swallowing, and chewing. That's normal. We have, you do have to be careful of loud noises. All right. At a foot of water, your tympanic membrane, your eardrum, knows there's a pressure difference. 1 foot of water, it already knows. At between 5 and 25 millimeters of mercury, in other words, up to a foot, it'll inflate by itself. And then at 60 to 170 millimeters of mercury, or 2.5 to 7 feet, that's all, it locks. So if you do a James Bond routine, jump out of an airplane and parachute, go straight down to the helmet hooker, and don't bother to do anything, your eardrum is in trouble. Because you have got to do something before this thing locks, because there's no technique that's going to open it up. When I was in Mozambique and did some diving, they did what? They said it was a really good current. And so we all went off the inflatable at the same time, and they said, no, by the way, you're going straight to the bottom, or we're going to miss the roof. Well, that did not work for me, because I don't go straight to the bottom in a negative buoyancy descent. 6 to 33 feet, seawater, pop. So what happens? You go down about 18 feet, 6 meters, can't clear the left ear. I've done it with a number of divers the last 3 weeks that, they kind of hover around 6 feet and sit down there waiting for them for half our time. And at any rate, then you hear a pop. Transient, sharp pain. Within about 30 seconds, you get really dizzy and maybe be sick. It clears up in about 2 minutes. Rest of the dive is a piece of cake. You come up, oh, my ear feels a little full. And your dive buddy says, did you know there's blood coming out of your ear? You have what's called middle ear barotrauma. The pressure got too great and basically imploded your eardrum. All right, well, we're going to talk about some techniques. We all see what you're doing. They're on a line, headed down, equalizing, swallowing and yawning. There's one. There's something called biance tubaire volontaire. We'll look at that. Very rare condition. The Valsalva. Anybody here not know the Valsalva? No, of course not. Because, no. Okay. Because it's what all the divers, instructors teach. And I was talking to Dr. Corolla, and she said she's been trying to educate the instructors on Bonaire that is not the technique you should teach. Toynbee, Frenzel, twitching, and I'm not talking about spasms. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 6 already. So let's look at head tilting. And we'll look at all of these. Edmonds, Lowry, and belligerization. Okay. Anybody heard of that before? All right. And you use something called an ovid. Okay. Swallowing and yawning. Here we have somebody swallowing and yawning. And there we are back in there. And those are tonsils, aren't they, Jay? Here they are back here. And when you're awake, you do this about 1 time a minute. Some of you students are going to do this a lot more frequently than that if I drag on long enough. I had, in first year medical school, I had my micro nap right after lunch. They turned the lights out, put up the slides, and we all took a nap. When you're asleep, you do this about once every 5 minutes. You don't have any idea what you're doing. The answer to the on the tip, this is a rare thing, and it just stays open all the time. I've never seen it. Goodness about Selda. He lived in 1704. This is the pinch and blood. So everybody tried pinch and blood. Whose here is equalized? Show of hands. Anybody for whom it did not work? Raise your hand. Good. You didn't raise your hand either time. I've been trained to be observant. Okay. It's the easiest to teach. Nobody needed instruction here. But you should never do it more than 5 seconds. So you don't do this until your eardrum ruptures. If it doesn't work after 5 seconds, you ascend. And we see it going on right here. There we go. See? All right. All right.
Whoa.
Now this is another one. This was developed. Oh, by the way, the Valsalva was originally developed to clear pus out of sinuses. That's how powerful it was. It could clear out pus. It wasn't to equalize ear pressure. This is Adam Pulitzer. This is a little device. But, you know, we don't want to blow our heads off. So there's something called an otovid, which is used by a lot of pediatricians with kids who have ear problems. And it's basically a calibrated party balloon. But it's calibrated so that these children can practice what the right pressure is to open up these stations to equalize the pressure in their middle ear. Because if they blow too hard, the balloon just expands and eventually blows. But it's better to bust a balloon than your eardrum. Okay? I had a bunch of these and I took them to a couple of dive shows and they just flew out of the room. And let me go back. This you can practice at home. This is how you can exercise those two pairs of muscles before a dive trip and beef them up. Just think of it as workout for your ears. Toynbee, pinch, and swallow. So everybody has to do it. Okay, that includes you, Lynn. Pinch and swallow. All right. Who did it work for? Hands up. Hi. Okay. Hands up. Okay. Who did it not work for? I want to see who's still here. Okay. Yeah. So what did it work on? Maybe a half ounce? Maybe. All right. It's also used by doctors to see how well things are working. In World War II, the German fighter pilots developed a guy by the name of Frenzel. You close the vocal cords, pinch the nose, make a K elevation of the tongue, and make a K elevation of the tongue. I don't know how you fly a fighter plane and do that at the same time. But did that work for anybody? A few, okay. All right, it's very gentle. This doesn't work for most people. Okay, now twitching. And our young lady, this is actually Franz's daughter. pinch the nose and rapidly turn the head to one side. Does nothing for me. Did it work for anybody? No. Okay. My wife and I were watching National Geographic show the other night, and it was on brain stuff, and they claimed that to help your memory, I don't forget what I said, no. To help your memory, you could go back and forth real quick, and that activates communication between the right and left hemispheres, and that maybe will help you remember something. Is that what you remember, Lynn? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it could. And the opposite ear is the one that will equalize if you do that. All right, there's head tilting. Okay. So everybody try this. We're going to tilt the head, but you're not going to bend the neck. You know, the head sits on C1, which is called the atlas, as I recall. So keep your neck straight and just tilt it over. I'm not able to do that very well. Put the bad ear up.
She's pinching her nose. Is that required too?
Yeah, that probably would help. I guess you can blow. Whoa, there we go.
Maybe do the case
Swallow.
Yeah, there you go. And blow also. You did. Yeah, so I guess you have to do the rest of it. Who did that work for? Both of mine went. That's it? Only that? Okay. All right. Yeah. Pinch the nose and blow a little bit. Doesn't actually say that, but that's what you do. And equal. All right. Carl Edmonds. Draw forward. Very good. And then you combine it with anything you want. But the main thing is that you move the jaw forward. Okay? Oh, there went both. I just did a general valsalva when they both went. Okay, who did that work for? Hands up. We're taking a count. Okay. All right, and then Christopher Lowry developed a technique. See, I got certified as a diver in 1971, and I think the only one that was available then was the valsalva. Pinch, blow, and swallow. All right? Pinch, blow, and swallow. Hands, who did it work for? Okay, there we go. A little tricky to do with the regulator. And I've actually taught a number of these techniques underwater with divers that were in trouble, including some of this past 3 weeks. All right. Did anybody count? Did we get to 10? No. I think so. All right. So, what does this mean?
He's got a problem.
Yeah, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Okay, so what happens? Stop. You know, the answer to almost everything in diving is stop. Stop to the center. Go up 3 to 5 feet. Remember the physiology slide about how much water it takes? How much water does it take before you lock? About 6 feet, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So if you go up, then you might get back up there. You got 10 techniques. Try them. See what works. If they don't work, your dive's over. Your dive's over. And if your dive buddy doesn't like that, then get a new dive buddy. I have had to abort dives in my career because it just wasn't going to work. All right, you have to watch out. Even experts can have problems. Never, ever force your ears. What happens if you force your ears? You can rupture the tympanic membrane, or worse, the round window to the inner ear. You really don't want to do that. The tympanic membrane, the eardrum, will heal itself. Round window, you're going to be seeing one of my buddies in an ENT office. Okay? Never force your ears. All right, a little bit more here. Anybody recognize the turbinates inside the nose? That's the incisors, that's the lip. And you got all these pockets of air, we call sinuses, all over the place. You know, everybody knows about these, but you got a bunch right in here. All right. Again, from year 3, when we had about 2,000 divers at that point. The top 7 reasons given by, out of that group, 383 divers canceled dives in 2003. Okay. 56% they have cold or an upper respiratory infection. 21% ear, sinus, and actual infection. Flu and fever, recent surgery, Equalize, back pain, sinus squeeze. So here's how. Now, if you're a chronic allergy sufferer like me, this is a very efficient way of handling your problem.
Underwater.
No, it doesn't work as well underwater. So let's go up there and see what we got.
No, thank you.
Those of you who are squeamish, don't go to medical school. And they're the
That's why I studied brain.
turbinates. Nice, and they look pretty healthy. So we'll back out. Those are the hairs. Now, if you do cocaine, these are a mess. Come on out, please. Thank you very much. Let's go up the right one. There's the forest. Oh, this is a mess. This is a mess. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Ugh. Okay, that's a mess. All right. Did you know that your sinuses drain 600 millimeters of mercury? Death. If you get a cold, it goes up 4 times. Ever heard of post-nasal drip? Well, that's what you're doing. And we don't want to see that. Just, yeah.
So can I ask, why does it drain 600? Is that just to keep them moist?
You're constantly, well, your body will take care of itself if we leave it alone. And so it is producing basically a flow of fluid to wash everything out. The dust, the collagens, whatever you inhale, this just keeps everything moving in. And that, we're going to get to that in a minute, because that's an issue. You don't want to see this. Okay. Well, years ago, I had my allergy season so bad in North Carolina that I could not breathe for about 4 or 5 months, and finally heard about techniques to clean out the crud, and I did. It looked like sewage, but I noticed that I could breathe and my ears cleared. And the next morning, my wife asked, you remember what you asked me the next morning? You asked, did you do something? Your snoring went down 90%. My GERDs also went well, because all night long I was swallowing all that junk. And I talked to some of my GI friends, and they said, yeah, that's pretty much what happens. And I've represented Neonatal Pharmaceuticals for a number of years in the dive industry, and I always like to clown around. Of course, everybody recognizes the neti pot, correct? But that's just gentle flow. And then this is a positive flow. So let me show you a little bit more. Now, there are a lot of, but this is the way you can get rid of all that stuff in your sinuses that's dripping back there. Also clear your nose, because eventually you get so much sludge or mud that the cilia that line the delicate millions of your sinus tracts and everything, they're just stuck. They're not moving anything. So we've got to get these things working again. Well, you clean it out. You clean all the sludge out. All right. And this is one product. There are multiple suppliers out there. Franz and I just happen to think this is the best one. And this is is not a company film. This is there are sororities that have gotten together and done a group YouTube science runs. Believe it or not, see who gross each other out the most. I got nephews that love to take this stuff to parties. Here we go. Well, what he's saying is that you're about to watch something really gross. Yeah. I have done this. I've demonstrated this in front of medical audiences live. And I was speaking to I did that to the Lionfish Club, and Dr. Corrales' teenage daughter got sick. She really wasn't ready for that. Yes.
I understand that this is going up one nostril and out the other. But how does it go up into the sinus when it has lower pressure and will drain through the other nostril?
Well, it does. He's a retired doctor also, so he's a plant. This is a high volume, positive pressure buffer saline technique. As I said, there are a number of these things around. I just happen to like this one because it's the best. You're applying enough pressure that you are going up. But this is the same technique that the ENTs use to clean out sinuses. It doesn't just move over here. Now, when you do it, it feels like all I did was go up one nose and out the other. But about 15 minutes later, you're leaning over your laptop, and all of a sudden, whoosh! Out the sinuses. There is actually a laryngoscope journal, whatever it is. There is a published study comparing the NETIPOC, which is passive gravity flow, vacuum, which is the old guys like you who snorted seawater, that's vacuum, and positive pressure, which is, I used to refer to it as a power wash of the nose. And Dr. Mehta really did not like me saying that. But it is positive pressure, so you're sending it up, it does go around and flushes things out. You only do any of these techniques if you can pass some air through both nostrils. Okay, if you are blocked, do not do this, because if you put an incompressible fluid up in there under pressure, guess where it's going? And I was in Chicago, and on a Sunday morning, a couple came to me and said, "We got a friend that's in severe pain." I said, "Oh, what about?" "Oh, we told him about your technique. He went and did it, and it came out his ear." Okay, so don't do this if it can't come out the nostril. It turns out that pulsatile is better than just steady. But doing this is kind of hard. So there's several companies, Waterpik and Neilmed, that will give it pulsatile. And that actually is far more effective. If anybody wants the journal reference, I'll be glad to give it sent to you.
David, question. I've used this, and if I use it and try to dive, immediately I cannot clear. If I let an hour go by, then I don't have a problem. Any
Well, we did not going to get into it. I actually did a study for the company. We recruited, because I had a database and I knew to use Sudafed, we recruited 200 divers received bottle kits from the company. 100 completed the study, and the surprising thing is it didn't seem to matter how long it was before you dove, whether it worked or not. Now, your experience was an hour. For some people, it's 3 minutes.
Better. But if I did it and then tried to dive right afterwards, I have a lot of problems.
Yeah, and that's true. And it doesn't work for everybody. It does not work for everybody. All right, move on. Grossman, you can use those. So what do you want to avoid? Kathy Church down in Cayman Islands swears that she's never known anybody with an equalizing problem once they got rid of dairy products. Cold feet will give you a runny nose. Not a cold shoulder, cold feet. Obstructions, if you got a deviated septum, we all do. Or nasal polyps. Smoking, that whether it's tobacco or pot, doesn't matter. Or infection. Anything that would cause inflammation. Yes?
Does cold feet mean literally like temperature cold feet or like you're nervous?
No. Cold feet like sticking in an ice bucket.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And use of decongestants over 5 days. All right. I ran into a diver last week who had some sort of sinus congestion problem. She had been on Sudafed for every day for 3 years. That's what she told me. Every day for 3 years. And I said, well, would you like some help? Some places on this island to carry the sinus wrench product. For a number of years, I brought down physician sample bottles and gave them to Michael at Chat and Browse. And he would sell out of them immediately, and then he'd charge outrageous prices for the refill kits. Especially since I gave it to him for free. But he's retired, and we haven't been able to get anybody to agree to sell it. There's one very prominent operation that told me this morning we decided not to sell it. So I don't know. Dr. Corello Rutter is, I think we're going to try to figure out some way to get her to carry it. The local pharmacies are not interested either. So otherwise, you just might have to bring it in. Yes?
A couple of questions. What's the purpose of the saline in the neti pot solution? What does saline do?
It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. Have you ever been in a swimming pool and gotten chlorine up your nose?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did it feel like?
Actually not good.
Yeah, not good. Would you do that on purpose?
I'll have fresh water if I'm out of my little packs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the reason for the buffered saline is so it doesn't burn.
So the water doesn't just
yeah, so that it doesn't burn when you do it.
Okay.
Because it's just isotonic. It's just isotonic. That's all it does. It has no active ingredient. Physicians really like it because they don't have to worry about drug-drug interaction. And so I tell people, yeah. So that's the reason. On my website, you can find a homemade recipe, but if you get the refills from the companies, you have a lot better quality control than what you get out of your salt shaker. Other questions?
I had another one regarding
sure.
the little eardrops. What's the brand name? You know, a little alcohol in your ear afterwards to kind of break up the water. Would you recommend? Because sometimes I have to do that. It does a good job. I've heard the technique of doing little eardrops just before swimming or snorkeling or scuba diving to kind of clean out the stuff. Does that seem to be
If you want to get a really rip-roaring ear pain, just use alcohol. When I was doing some early training in a quarry, I used alcohol. I had a little bit of discomfort. Used alcohol. It really messed up my outer ear canal.
Some of the wax in your ear is actually protective.
That is correct. And that is the reason the ideal mix is 49% acetic acid, which is white distilled vinegar. That is to kill the Pseudomonas, which is the bacteria that is responsible for swimmer's ear. Okay? And isopropyl alcohol, 49%. That is to dry. But the alcohol removes the wax. So what you do is you then put some glycerin in there, 2%. And that mix turns out to be ideal because you're killing the Pseudomonas, you're helping dry, and you're restoring the oil to the tissues.
Have you tried the solution sold by the Botica in town? Because that works really good.
Yeah. Yeah, what I do is I get the, well, I make stuff on my own, but what you can't, most of these swimmers products have like 96% isopropyl alcohol and 4% glycerol. Well, we all know the trick these days in marketing is to fill a box or a bottle half full. So I pop the top off, and then I pour the vinegar in to top it off, and now I've got my perfect mix. Other questions?
Is this on YouTube to watch it again?
Well, we'll find out if it
this
shows
is it.
up.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, they were kind enough to re-record it. Of course, if you watch on YouTube, why would you go see me live?
Be on DVD sales. DVD
Now-
sales, $29.99.
Yeah, the other thing is that for the students that came, I actually suggested that y'all bring these kits down because I understand that in these air-conditioned dorms, being around all these, sick people, that there's a good chance you're going to get congested. And so you could, that's the reason you're asked to bring it down. I have had people that had colds, and it will cut the duration of cold by 50%. That's been done in a number of studies. And it's not just this particular product, but anything that is effective irrigation. Others have a question? Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about the fact that this is also for airplanes, but with your diver, you can always go back up. If you're on an airplane and descending, what's the advice that goes
Well,
there?
don't fly with your children because they're streaming. I don't know if there is anything. I actually talked to a flight crew, remember one time, he said that all his friends take to the bed every day. Yeah, I don't know. You're right, you can't. But I had somebody, I was at DEMA, talking to one of the Liverpool people for the Red Sea, and he was telling me he had a friend who was taken by an instructor in the Red Sea for a dive experience. He gave him his octopus and hooked him on to him and started to descend into the Red Sea. Well, the problem was he didn't pay any attention to the fact that this beginner couldn't clear his ears, and all of it was about 20 feet. Fortunately, he did not rupture his ear. Wow. Yeah, that was my thought was, who certified him? As a caddy, I'm going to call up Drew Richardson, take his license. Anyone else? These techniques don't work for everybody. There's some people that just, diving just isn't for them. It's just not for them.
Well, let's thank Dave again for a talk. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I equalize by just like wiggling my jaw. Is that because it's similar to yawning, or is it weird?
Yeah. No, you're just moving the anatomy around.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll notice all these techniques are just a variation on the same thing, which is to somehow move something.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Dave.
Well, thank you very much.